Hello again. Welcome to another episode of Apocalyptic Weather Survival Guide. If you haven't already seen the intro, I suggest you go and see that, but we're going to take off where that left off. Now, previously I discussed the dangers of falling icy limbs. As you can see, these limbs have quite a bit of weight to them. You would not want that to fall and crush your skull. Well, maybe not crush your skull, but it could injure you seriously. Also, previously I discussed the dangers of fallen power lines. That should not be that low. This is very dangerous, by the way. But as you see, the heavy weight of these icy branches is pushing down these power lines so low that I could touch it. But I'm not going to do that because it's dangerous. And I'm being serious. Also, in yesterday's video, I showed how you could use a simple tea light, a teacup light that is, and utilize its heat. That being said, I like to keep some handy in my first aid kit. Also keep the first aid and emergency blanket in here. What I'm saying is I keep a little some tea light candles and some matches so you can have your warmth and as well as light in an emergency situation. I keep them in a bag so that they can stay dry. You always want to keep some sort of basic first aid kit with you. This is actually a kit within a kit. Several kits. Anyways, as I was saying, extreme cold conditions, critically low climate, and frigid temperatures. Winter hazards to watch out for include, and are not limited to, low visibility that can cause traffic accidents and icy roads. Sleet, snow, and hail form a sheet of ice on the highway, causing cars to spin off the road. And if you get stranded on the side of the highway, the emergency responders may not reach you for hours. Rapidly dropping temperatures make it extremely dangerous, especially when exposed to the elements. Fingers, nose, ears, and toes are most vulnerable. Also, your cheeks. Risks of harsh weather include frostbite and hypothermia, and cold temperatures narrow your blood vessels, increasing the risk of heart attack. Now, frostbite can be serious. Frostbite is serious, and it can be fatal, causing risk of bacterial wound infections. It can spread into the blood, that's called sepsis, and it requires treatment with antibiotics. Now, the signs of frostbite include numbness and tingling of skin. Skin color changes or becomes hard or waxy. For example, if you're walking around in the snow in wet-soaked shoes and you can't feel your feet, when body tissue becomes frozen, permanent damage can happen if not treated promptly. People have lost fingers, toes, even entire feet to frostbite. Now, the stages of frostbite include: first degree, skin irritation and pain. Second degree causes blisters on the skin. Third degree involves all layers of skin and causes permanent damage. And fourth degree occurs when bone and tendon freeze. Now, to treat frostbite, gently soak for 20 or 30 minutes until skin becomes normal color again and loses the numbness. Typically, that feels like pins and needles. For your face or ears, apply a warm, wet washcloth. And just a reminder, if you haven't already gone back and seen the episode on fire safety, I suggest you do. And Captain Obvious says, fire will keep you warm in cold temperatures. There's my breath. And of course, drinking something nice and warm will also help to warm you. Something nice and hot, like coffee or some hot cocoa. And as I mentioned previously, dressing in layers will give you additional warmth. For instance, wearing a hoodie inside your jacket with a hat on your head, and then you can wear another hat on top of that hat. Okay, there you go. For example, if you can see, beneath my pants I also have a pair of sweats, and then inside my socks I have another pair of socks. Okay, double it up. Except for your shoes, you can only wear one pair of shoes. Anyways, back to the dangers of hypothermia. It's very serious. Now, as I mentioned, I like to keep a fully stocked emergency supply kit. This is a fully stuffed duffel bag. In this bag, as I mentioned, we have the emergency blanket. That is very useful for emergencies such as hypothermia. Keep you warm because it reflects your body heat. One time when I was a child, I was trying to ice skate out on a frozen lake, but I didn't have ice skates. I was sliding around in my shoes. And the ice wasn't very thick, it was thin ice. So I was sliding around on thin ice, and as you may expect, I fell through that ice. That was cold. Thankfully, thank you Lord, I did not die that day. I was about 5 years old, maybe 4. I was pretty young. But what I remember about that the most is it was embarrassing for me having to strip out of my wet clothes and stand cold, naked, by a campfire in order to warm up. So you don't want to fall through cold ice. But if you do, that's where these emergency blankets come in handy. Also in this kit, we have this, which is another variation of the emergency blanket, but it is an emergency sleeping bag. It is huge. It's like 7 feet long, 4 or 5 feet wide. You can slide and climb inside that thing and pull it up over your head for warmth. Anyway, keep all those also in the kit in case of an emergency, such as hypothermia. Okay, now the signs of hypothermia include intense shivering, drowsiness, confusion. I'm making puns. No, I don't have hypothermia. I was doing that as an example. I said slurred speech. Fumbling of hands, confusion, drowsiness, and intense shivering. Now, infants and children, as well as the elderly, are at the greatest risk of hypothermia, and seizures can occur with brain damage. Ultimately, coma and death may ensue. So, stay warm. Seriously, take preventative measures so that you will not get hypothermia. Now, ice-covered branches may look beautiful, but slipping and falling on icy surfaces could result in broken bones and torn ligaments, possibly even a head injury. I slipped on some black ice one time and landed right on a parking block in the middle of my bag. That hurt. Thankfully, I was able to get up and slip away like, whoa, try to keep your balance on ice. And staircases can be especially dangerous. Certain conditions can be particularly dangerous, and one misstep could result in injury or death. Dangerous! Now, as I mentioned, down power lines are a hazard, and touching a down power line could result in electrocution. Bzzz. Bzzz. I mean, it's cold out here. But seriously, down power lines could result in electrocution and death, especially in wet conditions, such as this. Dun, 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 dun. Dangerous! Also, depending on circumstances, for survival and staying warm, please keep in consideration gas burning furnaces produce carbon monoxide. That could lead to carbon monoxide poisoning in enclosed spaces, causing flu-like symptoms and eventually causing death. Okay, now safety equipment like no-slip shoes and warm clothing will help to protect you from some of these weather-related hazards.